So hi everyone, today we're thrilled by joining with our PRISM practitioner and mentor, Nicola Jane Ablett. Hi Nicola.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, it's a pleasure to be with you.
I'm so excited. I would like to directly go into topic and start by asking you to explain PRISM for us a little bit.
Explain PRISM. PRISM is like light refracting. So if you think about light reflecting off a glass, or you think about a rainbow, it's about refraction of light. So it's about color and how that impacts and affects our lives. It's neurosciences and it's behavioral. It's not psychometrics. It's very, very difficult to fake and to cheat with PRISM. It's basically looking at your brain like a walnut, and everything communicates through the center like a walnut. So you have the front of the brain, the sides of the brain, and the back of the brain. And that is the baseline of everything. So neurology is very important with the understanding of PRISM. Then we get into the maps, we get into the quadrants, and we get into the dimensions, and we also have emotional intelligence, mental toughness, the big five, career development, and we have behaviors, aptitudes, and core traits. But I don't want to go into too much detail. The only other thing I would add is that we have three maps. We have the underlying map, the way we tend to behave and us with our full potential, which changes maybe generationally or when there's life events. So sometimes people finish university, they go into a job, people get married, husband or wife, people have children. Sort of life milestones can impact the underlying map, can impact. And then you have what's called the consistent map, which very simply is the way you tend to behave in a given situation, the way other people tend to expect you to behave. And that may be different in a work situation or synchronized swimming or the knitting team or whatever it may be, social media behavior or influencer behavior or blogger. And then you have the adapted map, which is the one that moves the most because it's situational. And you can put up with that or cope with that reasonably effectively if you have a good baseline and you're well grounded and you can actually go back more into your comfort zone. So the longer you're out of your comfort zone, adapted in a situation, the more stress you will be under, and that could put pressure on your performance and lead to psychological stress.
Can you tell us about your journey with PRISM? What initially drove you into PRISM?
Ooh, that's a really interesting one. That goes back 20 years. What I liked about PRISM was the fact that it was neurosciences and behavioral, and it was much more exciting to me and much more relevant to everyday life, emotionally, professionally, and socially, whereas psychometrics is about abilities and personality, and you can fake it and you can cheat. So PRISM for me was live, very difficult to fake, and you had various quadrants, dimensions, and the different maps. So that's what attracted me to it. Plus looking at increasing your performance. And if you're a really nasty person, you can use it to manage other people who are not performing or cooperating or behaving as they would benefit more people rather than just themselves.
In your experience, what would you say is the most powerful or transformative aspect of the PRISM methodology?
Again, that's a very interesting question. For me, most of us know where our preferred behaviors are and where our least preferred behaviors or our avoided behaviors are. When we do PRISM inventory questionnaire, not test, not exam, when we get engaged with the PRISM methodology, it actually demonstrates to us what we usually already know. So looking at things which are scientifically based, valid and reliable, it helps us to understand why we respond in certain instances in certain ways and how we can manage our preferred behaviors depending on who we're working with or who's antagonizing us in order to have a win-win situation, or in other language like transactional analysis, an adult communication. So for me, PRISM, being neurosciences and behavioral, is very much about making sure people grow rather than they get destroyed. I'm not sure.
How does PRISM stand out or offer a unique perspective compared to other coaching or development tools you've encountered?
Well, for me, the first thing is that you can't fake. It's almost impossible to fake because there's something called SKU and social desirability scores. So I am level A and level B British Psychological Society certified, and I have several other tools that are more psychometrics. For me, the abilities are very important, but the personality is something that's formed very early on. So I love the fact that it's behaviors, aptitudes, and core traits. And that because you have the quadrants and the dimensions, and then we have a range with the PRISM, which is 0 out to 100. And that's going to be too much detail for just now. And the key, the maps. The maps make all that difference. So if you're doing recruitment or career exploration, you'd only use the underlying map, who you are. When somebody's inside the organization, we use the consistent map. 360, leadership, coaching, performance management, all those other different aspects, because people are inside the organization. And the adapted map is used more to find out what is going on and what do we need to do in order to secure psychological safety and take care of people.
Looking at the broader landscape of personal and professional development, where do you see PRISM fitting in, and what role do you think it will play in the future?
I think it's a very timely, because we've got all the AI, chat GTP and stuff. But a lot of people are missing out on the emotional connection. So I think that the more there is remote work, remote learning, online, etc., PRISM is a very powerful tool in helping people to understand how to connect with people, not just with artificial intelligence. Because you may spend 65% of your time on social media, whatever that tool might be. But when do you connect with people? When you're standing next to the water fountain or getting a cup of coffee or tea, are you able to interact with your colleagues? So I think that the PRISM is going to be really beneficial, particularly with, say, career exploration, because being in the Middle East, we already know that your children are going to be, you're an engineer, you're a doctor, you're going to be an ophthalmologist, you're going to be an accountant. And sometimes that is peer group, sometimes it's parents, sometimes it's extended family, sometimes it's school. But people need to be able to start making choices that are based on their preferred behaviors in order to be more successful. 20, 30 years ago, people weren't thinking about being astronauts. They weren't thinking about being influencers. Yeah. How much life has an influencer got left? Because an influencer is going to become much more short term, because people want reality. They want valid and reliable information. They want real people. People are getting fed up with fakery, and people are fed up with being manipulated and abused. So I think PRISM, right back to, like, say, age 12, looking at youth, enabling youth, empowering youth, helping them, because the environment for work is changing beyond all recognition. Sharjah Emirate had a 4-day week a long while back, post-COVID. Dubai Emirate is introducing a 4-day week and trialing it through the summer. I think it's Iceland, where they've been doing a 4-day week for an awfully long time. It needs to be a life-work balance rather than a work-life balance.
I see.
In my opinion.
PRISM emphasize building strong rapport and trust with clients. How does the PRISM approach specifically help in establishing that deep connection with the individuals and teams you work with?
Right. Again, this depends on whether it's a small SME, it's an individual person, a small SME that's a free zone company or a LLC, or if it's an international company or it's a government sector, federal government, local government. So there are various different variables. So one of the biggest things is the emotional intelligence component of PRISM, which helps you looking at, particularly in the UAE, with 200 plus different nationalities and such a range of employers. It helps you to look at the emotional intelligence, the social behavior, the cultural behavior, the generational behavior, because there's like 7 different generations in the workforce. So the PRISM helps you, depending on what you're doing, 360, you can have up to over 25 different respondents. The team performance diagnostic, then you can use for building teams or developing teams. And they've got performance management, coaching, mentoring. So working with individuals or working with groups of people. It's very powerful because some of the responses can be anonymous. You can match it up with competencies that are already established in the organization, or you can use some of the PRISM competencies. So it's hugely versatile, and it gives you valid and reliable information.
Core part of PRISM involves understanding behavior preferences. Could you explain what these preferences are and how identifying them helps individuals and teams?
When you know what you prefer to do, it's something that you can do with ease. So we have stress, but we have negative stress and positive stress. So some people need stress in order to perform at their best, whereas other people fall apart. So with the PRISM, because we have 0 out to 100, anything under 35 is a least preferred or avoided behavior. Then without going into too much detail, we go 35 with 50 in the middle up to 65. 65 to 75 is a natural strength. When we go past 75, it can potentially be too much of a good thing. So when we know that we're 75 to 100, if we're in the green quadrant, which is to do with inspiration, then we know that if we're working with somebody who's red in the directional controlling quadrant, then we know we need to adapt our behavior down in order to engage with those people without losing them. So we've got front of the brain, gold and green, monitoring and inspiring. Back of the brain, red, more to do with control and direction, and blue, which is more to do with facilitation. So when we know this, as an individual and as a team, as a leader, as a follower, we can use that knowledge to be more effective.
Yeah, and to be clear, these numbers it indicates after you take the exam.
That comes up on what some people call the wheel. But there's one particular page which is all color coded, and it's very important that if you print it in color. Because if you do it in black and white, it's not going to be as useful as if you have the color sheet and then the dimension explanations afterwards. So yeah, you won't get that information and you won't necessarily understand it unless you've talked with people who are practitioners and they're passionate and they don't stop talking about it. Yeah, so underscore, the numbers are all scientifically based. So it's all about validity and reliability.
Many of us have unconscious biases. How does PRISM help people identify their negative biases, and what's the process for addressing them?
Again, that's a really interesting question, because unconscious bias probably would be demonstrated not so much in your preferred behaviors. It may come up in your preferred behaviors as an overdone strength. It may come up in your least preferred behaviors or your avoided behaviors. It may, because it's like halo and horns effect, like halo and horns. So it may be when you see what your most preferred behaviors and your least preferred behaviors and where you can flex with comfort helps you individually to self-identify where my unconscious bias is coming in, or if you're having coaching or being mentored, or it's part of a team development, or it's part of a 360 process, then it can be spoken about without people losing face, which is very important in the Middle East.
Did you realize any bias about yourself after taking the PRISM questionnaire and becoming a practitioner?
Not bias, but I became much more aware of my evaluating, and the fact that if someone rings me up and says, hey, I've got something really serious to talk to you about, I would immediately go into overdrive in what did I do, what did I not do, what could I have done, what could I have done differently. So being alert to that was a big advantage, because I was able to work on it and actually bring it down slightly. But being aware of it meant that I didn't do it to the nth degree. I didn't go into overdrive.
I see.
And also in the gold quadrant, I already knew I was not particularly excited by detail and getting things perfect. So I started using my coordinating in the discerning dimension. I started using coordinating in order to manage my lack of finishing or delegate it.
I see.
It's not best use of my natural abilities.
So we can say that it's a system everybody has, and different system for everyone,
We're
and you
all
just
unique.
learn it.
Yeah, we're all unique. But if we know how we operate, then we can adapt our behavior in given situations. So I actually know somebody who uses PRISM inventories for marriage counselling.
Oh,
Yes.
that's interesting.
And we're not going to tackle that today. But because sometimes people get into conflict rather than being solution focused.
That's true.
And some people will deliberately wind each other up where they don't need to. It just needs a little give, a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that, in order to get to a place where you have collaboration rather than compromise. But we can have a whole 15 minutes on collaboration and compromise, and communication skills.
That's really interesting. It's especially for the wedding part. I think it could save many people.
It's communication. Basically, people need to be able to understand that the way they deliver second language, third language, volume, facial expressions, the whole body language impacts how the message is received. Not just encoding what's the medium, what's the decoding.
Could you share an anonymous success story, perhaps about an individual or a team where PRISM made a significant positive difference?
Anonymous, with no
Name.
giveaways. No, not even the names. No giveaways, no country. There have been so many from the point of view of resilience and mental toughness and taking responsibility for self and realizing that in a moment you can wrap your shayla, and that gives you time to breathe, compose yourself, and change the dynamics of a situation. It could be in just, I can think of a couple in the very recently, in the last 2 or 3 months, if not weeks, where people self-identified and had aha moments. So you're not directing them, you're not controlling them. You're putting them in a place where they look at their behavior and they come up with a solution which is far more powerful and far more lasting. But the two I'm thinking of were to do with coordinating. So these people are very high in coordinating, 0 out to 100. They're both over 75. So they coordinate and control, in fact, but not focus. They can coordinate everything to the nth degree, and nobody else is able to do anything. So even if they delegate, they still don't let go and they micromanage. So these two people made a conscious decision that they needed to relieve their coordinating and facilitate others to be able to coordinate. And because they started doing that, that made a difference to the team dynamic.
Wow.
It's not rocket science, but it's very powerful when you understand what your behaviors are doing to other people.
Actually, PRISM pushes people to take action. That's the most impactful thing I've encountered.
To make a choice to take action, or to make a choice just to this is me and that's
stay
the way it
around
is.
the same. That's true.
No change.
Because we see many people complaining about their behaviors that they want to change but do nothing. But PRISM pushes you to actually change them.
Yeah, and they don't put it into behaviorally stated. I will run daily, or I will run soon. I will run daily. I will swim 30 lengths every other day and do it. Not, I will swim 30 lengths by the year end. So it's like the SMART thing: specific, measurable, achievable. Is it actionable? Is it attainable, as well as relevant and time bound? Whereas I like RUMBA: relevant, understandable, measurable, behaviorally stated, and then the achievable, attainable, and actionable. You have to be able to put it into action.
Yeah.
If you're working somewhere and you can attain, you can action. You can attain and you can, it's attainable, but is it actionable? Because will your line manager give you delegation? Will they give you authority? Will they give you accountability? Maybe, but will they delegate to allow you to put something into action and make it happen? Sometimes people won't. So you have to find a way to delegate back up.
Yeah.
In order to effect the change or make the
true.
difference.
True.
So again, behaviors.
What are some common challenges or aha moments clients experience when they start working with PRISM, and how do you help them navigate those?
Again, you have to have built a good rapport. You have to have trust. So anytime I'm introducing PRISM, I make sure people have enough of an understanding before they actually open up the questionnaire and complete it.
I see.
If it's a team performance diagnostic or 360 particularly, then you need to have kind of a brief that goes out to those who are going to participate and to their line managers or to the person who's part of the 360, so that people know what is going to happen in order to have the engagement, because you don't want people to sabotage. If people don't know, they will sabotage. So you need to engage. And again, that's another really interesting acronym: ADKAR: awareness, desire, knowledge, attainable, actionable, and reinforcement. So if you don't have all the awareness, then you can't make a difference.
I see.
So you've got to engage with people. They have to have trust. They need to feel safe before you can start discussing and making a difference. But they make most of the difference.
Yeah.
You coach them so they make the decisions. You
I
don't
see.
direct them. You give them information. They can see the information. They connect the information. And if you are able to facilitate effectively, they will make the plan and they will effect the changes.
As I recently took the questionnaire, you made it so clear for me to answer the questions, not solve the questions because it's not an exam. But while I was taking the questionnaire, I had flashbacks of pictures of my behaviors. So it's actually super understandable what the questionnaire asks from you and how you answer it. And sometimes it can be hard to decide on which behavior is most preferred.
Yeah, because doing most likes in the first section, there were the most like, least like, most like. So the fourth one is obviously the least like. And some of them don't feel anything like us at all. But what is most like out of the choices and what is least like out of the choices? And it's really interesting when you're doing it in different languages. You're doing your first language or your second language, because this is not colloquial, everyday street language. This is PRISM language and more akin to psychology. So yeah, it's very interesting when you're going like, oh, wow, yeah. I know what I did then. I could have done that differently.
Yeah.
But not to become crippled or like stuck because you over-evaluated. Or you're so green, you're so innovative and initiating, not initiative. You're so green, you're on to the next thing. Oh, there's a brand new this, there's a brand new that. Have you heard about? What about? Why not? And you don't complete anything.
As it appears.
And that's why when you're building teams, you need a mixture of behaviors so that people complement. So it doesn't matter if there's a team of 5 and you've got 2 or 3 who are very high in initiating, if you have somebody that's grounded enough in the delivery. So again, all the different dimensions, the eight dimensions in the 4 quadrants, because each quadrant 2 dimensions, makes such a difference when you're building your team.
It's really powerful to have the opportunity to build your team according to that maps that people take the questionnaire, and then they have map at the end, and you can pick all of it accordingly. And PRISM has many languages. Many languages.
And we've been refining the Arabic since February, and Arabic was the second language. After English, Arabic was the second language that PRISM was translated into.
That's great.
And we're going to be looking at Turkish translation refinement soon.
I'll be digging in. Looking back, what's been the most surprising or impactful insight you've gained about human behavior or development through your work with PRISM?
That's another interesting one. One of the biggest things is observing people who know who they are, but they are terrified of doing the PRISM questionnaire because they don't want anybody else to know what they know about themselves. That has probably been the most powerful. The other thing is, because there is a cutoff with the skew and with the social desirability, I have only twice in 15 plus years had anybody who was over and above the cutoff point. And I actually knew that was going to happen because of the way this person behaved and interacted. So their behaviors, their aptitudes, and their core traits indicated that they would not answer the questions honestly.
Even that we can understand before they think.
Yeah, yes, but again, you need to be careful to remember not to assume and not to project. So you need to maintain integrity, stick with your values and ethics, because you can't project onto somebody else. You need to take it as it is. So again, we kind of come back to transaction analysis and adult rather than directional or in adaptive behavior. Different adaptive from the PRISM adaptive.
For someone who is curious about PRISM, or perhaps considering working with a practitioner, what's one key piece of advice you would offer them?
Right, well, I never give advice. People need to make their own decisions and do their due diligence. But counsel, thought process, anybody can talk to somebody who's had the experience. If you don't know anybody who has the experience, or you don't know a practitioner, you have Iconic Ascend, you have IDMIA, you have prismbrainmapping.com directly, and on prismbrainmapping.com you can get a lot of information, and you can also look at your country and find a practitioner. So there are many, many ways of finding out more about PRISM. It depends on what your preferred learning style is, and it also depends on where you're actually located, and then what language. But do your due diligence.
If there's one common misconception people have about PRISM, what would it be, and how would you clarify it?
The first challenge is that people don't always listen. So they hear PRISM rather than PRISM. But once you explain refracted light, then there's like, oh, okay. Then they start to become more open to listen. People who are more NLP, neuro-linguistic planning type people, they can be a bit antagonistic, and they can not deliberately undermine, but because they're so so committed to their practice, then they don't always look open-mindedly, which goes back to one of your questions earlier. Sometimes people don't look at it openly as like adult and be neutral when they're addressing it. Some people are so caught up in abilities and personalities. Abilities I have no problem with, but personalities are formed very early on, whereas we can adapt our behaviors, and we have our aptitudes and we have our core traits. So I think when people are open and their hearts are open and their minds are open, it's not a case of convincing, they self-convince. And we haven't talked about benchmarking, but when you have benchmarking, which is the extra map, you can actually sit down with a focus group and get an expert, somebody who's recognized as really good at what they do, maybe a line manager, maybe an external practitioner, an external stakeholder, team of 6 to 8, and sit down and then you look at what's the most important dimension for the role. What's the least important? What's the second most important? What's the second least? What's the third most? Because those 5 are critical to the job. And the ones in the middle can be flexed reasonably easily. It's very powerful, very powerful. And I think a lot of people, because they've had bad experiences with DISC, MBTI or whatever, and I'm not criticizing them, but if you've had a bad experience, then you're not necessarily open to looking at something alternative. Neuroscience and behavioral, not rocket science, makes a huge difference.
So, Nicola, you took us to a really enlightening journey about PRISM. I thank you again for being here and explaining and again being a mentor.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. And maybe we'll do a question and answer session from guests on a live question and answer session at some point in the future before the end of 20... Right, okay, let's make a timeline. Before the end of 2025.
Let's do that. It's a really amazing idea. So we will meet again, guys.
Inshallah.